Finn remained frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at the unconscious alien woman as if she might disappear if he blinked too slowly. Unfortunately, she did not disappear. In fact, she continued breathing very calmly, as though sleeping in the room of a confused maintenance worker was a perfectly reasonable life choice. Finn glanced toward the door. Still locked. He glanced at the small window. Still space. Then he looked back at the woman. Still alien. Well, Finn whispered to himself, this is a new one. Carefully, very carefully, he slid off the bed and stood up. The mattress shifted slightly under the alien woman's weight, but she did not wake. Up close, Finn could see the details of her uniform more clearly. It was clearly military, sleek, armored in places, with thin glowing lines that suggested integrated technology. The insignia on her collar was unfamiliar, though Finn had seen similar symbols on the massive cruiser that had docked earlier. Zenthari, he muttered quietly, which made the situation worse. The Zenthari were not tourists. They were one of the most disciplined and powerful military civilizations in the sector. Their officers were known for strict protocol, sharp intelligence, and absolutely no sense of humor. Finn looked back at the bed. Of course, he said softly. Why wouldn't a Zenthari officer appear in my bed while unconscious? That's a totally normal maintenance department problem. The alien woman stirred slightly. Finn froze again. Her eyes opened. They were bright, golden, and extremely alert. For a brief moment, she stared at the ceiling as if trying to remember where she was. Then her gaze slowly turned toward Finn. Their eyes met. Neither of them spoke. Finn raised one hand awkwardly in a small wave. Good morning. The woman sat up instantly, her movements precise and fast. In one smooth motion, she was upright on the bed, scanning the room with the calm focus of someone trained for dangerous situations. Her gaze returned to Finn. Her voice was calm, controlled, and slightly confused. Why am I in your bed? Finn pointed at her. That, he said immediately, is exactly what I was hoping you would explain. The woman swung her legs off the bed and stood. She was slightly taller than Finn, her posture straight and disciplined. She looked around the small cabin again. This is not my assigned quarters. Correct, Finn replied. This is my assigned quarters. Welcome to the least impressive room on the station. She frowned slightly. How did I get here? Finn folded his arms. Great question. The woman touched a small device on her wrist. A thin holographic display appeared above it, projecting system data. Her eyes scanned the information quickly. My memory of the last several hours is unclear. Finn nodded slowly. That is a polite way of saying you have no idea how you ended up here. She looked at him again. You appear unusually calm about this. Finn shrugged. I work maintenance. After the third time an airlock tries to open itself during lunch, your expectations for normal mornings become flexible. The woman studied him carefully. You are not concerned that an unknown alien officer appeared in your room? Oh, I'm concerned, Finn said. Extremely concerned. But panic seems unlikely to improve the situation. For a moment, the alien woman simply stared at him. Then she said, My name is Commander Ziva. Finn gave a small nod. Finn, professional fixer of broken things. Ziva's golden eyes narrowed slightly. Did you bring me here? Finn blinked. I would remember kidnapping a military commander. You did not answer the question, because the answer is no. She watched him for several seconds, clearly evaluating whether he was lying. Finn raised both hands. Look, if I had somehow convinced a Zenthari commander to visit my room voluntarily, I would at least remember the conversation. Ziva seemed to consider that. Then she turned toward the door. I need to review the station's security logs. Finn nodded immediately. Excellent idea, because right now I have two working theories. Ziva looked at him. What are they? Finn raised one finger. First theory, you are secretly a sleepwalker who enjoys visiting maintenance workers? That is unlikely. Finn raised a second finger. Second theory, something very strange is happening. Ziva considered that. That is more likely. Finn walked over to the wall console and activated the station network. If you entered my room, the corridor cameras should have recorded it. Ziva stepped closer, watching the screen. Finn pulled up the hallway footage from the night cycle. The recording appeared. Both of them leaned closer. The corridor outside Finn's door was quiet. Then, several hours earlier, a figure appeared on the screen. Commander Ziva. She walked calmly down the corridor, her movements steady and purposeful. She stopped in front of Finn's door. Then she entered the access code. Finn stared at the screen. "You know my door code?" Ziva frowned. "I do not." The recording showed her opening the door and stepping inside. Then the footage ended. Silence filled the room. Finn leaned back slowly. "Well," he said, "that clears things up." Ziva looked at him. "How?" Finn pointed at the screen. "You definitely came here." She nodded slowly. "Yes. But the problem," Finn continued, "is that you clearly knew the door code." Ziva looked troubled. "I have no memory of this." Finn crossed his arms. "Well," he said thoughtfully, "that means one of two things." Ziva waited. Finn smiled slightly. "Either your memory is broken, or mine is about to become very interesting." Finn replayed the security footage again, and again. Commander Ziva stood beside him, her arms folded as she watched her own recorded image calmly enter the access code to his door. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, Finn leaned closer to the screen and squinted. "You even typed it correctly on the first try," he said. "That alone is suspicious." Ziva glanced at him. "Why? Because I forget it at least twice a week?" She ignored that. The footage continued showing Ziva stepping into the room with complete confidence. There was no hesitation in her movement, no confusion, no signs of distress. She had looked like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Finn leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said slowly, "that definitely wasn't sleepwalking." Ziva remained silent, clearly thinking. Finn turned toward her. "Do Zenthari officers normally break into maintenance workers' rooms at night?" "No." "Good," Finn said, "because that would raise several workplace concerns." Ziva tapped her wrist device again. The small holographic display flickered to life as she accessed the station network. "I need additional logs," she said. Finn scooted his chair aside to give her room. "Be my guest. The system password is—" "I already accessed it." Finn blinked. "You hacked the station network?" "I used diplomatic command authority." "That sounds like hacking with paperwork." Ziva ignored the comment. Streams of data began flowing across the holographic screen. Station traffic logs, access records, environmental scans. Finn watched the scrolling data with mild confusion. "I feel like this is the part where the smart person finds something important." Ziva paused the feed suddenly. "There." Finn leaned forward. "What am I looking at?" Ziva highlighted a section of the data. "My biometric signature registered near this corridor 12 minutes before the footage begins." "That seems normal." "It was registered near the central command deck." Finn frowned. "That's on the opposite side of the station." "Yes." "So you somehow crossed half the station in 12 minutes?" "Yes." Finn rubbed his chin. "That is technically possible." Ziva tilted her head slightly. "The path I took was unusual." The screen displayed a map of Orpheus Station. A glowing line traced the route Ziva had taken. Finn leaned closer. "That is not the shortest path." Ziva nodded. "I moved through 4 separate corridors, 2 service elevators, and a maintenance shaft." Finn looked offended. "You used a maintenance shaft?" "Yes." "You didn't even say hello." Ziva looked at him. "I did not know you." Finn sighed. "That makes sense." They studied the route again. Finn tapped the map. "Wait a second." Ziva looked where he pointed. "The path you took ends here," Finn said. "My room." "Yes. But the weird part," Finn continued, "is that the route you took is basically impossible to guess unless you know the maintenance ring layout." Ziva looked at him. "You work here?" "Yes. And you know this layout?" "Very well." She paused. "Have we met before?" Finn blinked. "No." "Are you certain?" "I am fairly confident I would remember meeting a Zenthari commander with extremely noticeable ears." Ziva did not react. Finn pointed at the screen. "Also, you entered my door code." "Yes. And I never gave it to you." "No." "So," Finn said slowly, "either I secretly know you and forgot," Ziva crossed her arms, "or someone modified our memories." Finn froze for a moment. That escalated quickly. Ziva stared at the data again. My people use memory editing technology in certain military situations. Finn turned his chair slightly away from the console. I don't like where this conversation is going. Ziva continued calmly. It is possible that certain events were removed from my memory. Finn looked back at the screen. Events involving me? Possibly. Finn scratched his head. Okay, let's say that happened. Hypothetically. Ziva waited. Finn pointed at the footage again. If your memory was altered, something must have still guided you here. Ziva nodded slowly. Yes. Which means, Finn continued, some part of you still knew my room was safe. She looked at him again. Why would it be safe? Finn shrugged. Well, I'm excellent at repairing coffee machines. That does not answer the question. Finn leaned back. Look, Commander, if I had secretly been involved in some dangerous mission with you, I feel like my life would be way more exciting. Ziva studied him carefully. You appear sincere. Thank you. But you also appear unaware of the situation. Also correct. She turned back to the data. Then we must investigate further. Finn nodded slowly. I agree. Ziva glanced at him. You are willing to assist? Finn pointed at the bed. Commander, you woke up in my room with no memory of why you came here. Yes. That automatically makes this my problem. Ziva considered that. Finn stood up and stretched. Besides, he added casually, I'm curious. About what? He smiled slightly. About why a high-ranking alien officer decided the safest place on this entire station was next to a maintenance worker who argues with gravity regulators. Ziva looked thoughtful. That is an interesting question. Finn opened the cabin door. Well, he said, stepping into the corridor, let's go find an answer. Behind them, the security screen quietly replayed the footage once more. Ziva standing outside the door, entering the code, walking inside like she had done it 100 times before, like she already knew Finn. The maintenance corridor outside Finn's room was quiet, lit by long strips of soft white light running along the ceiling. The air carried the faint metallic smell of coolant and machine oil. An aroma Finn had long ago stopped noticing. Commander Ziva stepped into the corridor beside him, her posture alert as her eyes scanned the environment with professional precision. Finn noticed immediately. You know, he said casually, most people just walk down the hallway. Ziva didn't stop scanning. Situational awareness is standard procedure. Finn nodded. Sure, but if something dangerous was hiding in maintenance corridor C, it would probably be a leaking pipe. They began walking. Ziva moved smoothly, her boots making almost no sound against the metal floor. Finn's steps, meanwhile, produced a very human clanking noise. After a moment, she spoke. This area is unusually quiet. That's because nothing important happens here, Finn said. Important people stay closer to the central decks. You are not offended by that? Finn shrugged. I fix things. When everything works, nobody notices me. When something breaks, suddenly I'm extremely popular. Ziva glanced at him briefly. That sounds inefficient. It is, Finn agreed. They reached a junction where the corridor split into several different directions. Ziva raised her wrist device again and projected the station map into the air. The glowing hologram showed the route she had taken the previous night. Finn leaned closer. Right, he said, pointing. You came through that maintenance shaft. Ziva nodded. Yes, Finn looked at her. That shaft is usually sealed. I opened it. With what authorization? Ziva paused. I do not remember. Finn folded his arms. That's not comforting. They continued walking toward the shaft. The narrow access hatch was built into the wall between two power conduits. Ziva stopped in front of it. Finn crouched down and inspected the control panel. Well, he said, someone definitely opened it last night. Ziva studied the small scanner beside the hatch. Does it record biometric access? Usually. Finn tapped the console. The panel flickered to life and displayed a short access log. He stared at it for a moment, then blinked. Well, that's strange. Ziva stepped closer. What is it? Finn pointed at the screen. The hatch recorded 2 authorized users. Ziva frowned slightly. One is me, she said. Yes. And the other? Finn scratched the back of his head. Also me. Ziva looked at him. That is not possible. That's what I thought. He scrolled through the log again. The system clearly showed two access events. First entry, Commander Ziva. Second entry, Technician Finn. The timestamps were only a few seconds apart. Finn slowly stood up. I definitely did not open this hatch last night. Ziva studied him carefully. You are certain? Extremely. She looked back at the console. Your biometric signature is confirmed. Finn leaned against the wall. Well, that's awkward. Ziva tilted her head slightly. Why? Because unless someone stole my hand while I was sleeping, he gestured at the screen. The system thinks I helped you open this hatch. Ziva considered that quietly. Finn sighed. Let me guess. Memory manipulation again. That is one possibility. Great. Ziva stepped closer to the hatch and opened it. The narrow maintenance shaft beyond was dimly lit by faint blue service lights. A vertical ladder disappeared upward into the structure of the station. Finn peered inside. Yep, that's definitely the path you took. Ziva began climbing. Finn blinked. Wait, you're going in there? Yes. You are a high-ranking alien, Commander. Yes. That shaft is mostly dust and electrical cables. Ziva looked down at him. I am aware. Finn sighed and grabbed the ladder. Well, if this turns out to be a trap, I want it on record that I usually fix pipes. They climbed slowly upward. The shaft hummed with the vibration of nearby reactors. Occasionally, sparks flickered from exposed conduits. After several minutes, they reached a small maintenance platform. Ziva stepped onto it and examined the surrounding equipment. Finn climbed up beside her. This section connects to the internal network relay, he said. Ziva knelt beside a control unit. The relay has been accessed recently. Finn leaned over her shoulder. Define recently. Approximately 8 hours ago. Finn blinked. That's when we were sleeping. Ziva opened the relay panel. Inside, several micro-modules were glowing faintly. She studied them carefully. These are neural interface transmitters. Finn frowned. I'm not sure I like those words. They are used for memory synchronization. Finn's eyes widened. Synchronization? Yes. Finn stared at the device. You're telling me someone used the station relay to mess with our memories? Ziva nodded slowly. That is the most likely explanation. Finn crossed his arms. Well, he said, that explains why I feel like I forgot something important. Ziva looked at the module again. This device was calibrated specifically for our neural patterns. Finn leaned closer. Meaning? Meaning whoever did this knew both of us. Finn let out a long breath. Fantastic. Ziva stood up. The question now is why? Finn scratched his chin. I can think of one reason. She looked at him. What reason? Finn gestured between them. Maybe we knew something we weren't supposed to know. Ziva considered that quietly. Finn looked down the shaft below them. You know, he added casually, this is usually the part of the story where things get dangerous. Ziva met his eyes. That possibility is increasing. Finn sighed. I was really hoping today would just involve fixing docking clamps. Far below them, the maintenance shaft lights flickered briefly, and neither of them noticed the small hidden camera mounted inside the relay panel, quietly shutting itself off. Finn stared at the glowing neural transmitter module for a long moment, then leaned back slowly against the metal wall of the maintenance platform. All right, he said quietly, let me summarize our morning so far. Ziva folded her arms. I am listening. Finn raised one finger. First, you somehow walked into my room like you owned the place. Another finger. Second, security footage proves you knew my door code, which you definitely should not know. A third finger. Third, a maintenance hatch claims I helped you open it, even though I was asleep and probably dreaming about coffee. Ziva nodded slightly. That is accurate. Finn pointed at the glowing device inside the relay panel. And now we find a machine designed to mess with people's memories. Ziva studied the module again, her expression serious. This transmitter is extremely precise. It is not random memory alteration. Finn sighed. So someone deliberately edited our brains. Yes. Finn scratched his head. That sounds illegal. It is illegal. Good, Finn said. At least the universe still has standards. Ziva carefully removed the transmitter module from the relay panel. It detached with a soft click, the faint glow dimming slightly as she held it in her hand. She examined its circuitry closely. This device was calibrated for 2 neural patterns. Finn pointed at himself. Let me guess. Mine and yours. Yes. Finn leaned closer. I don't suppose it also explains what memories were removed. Ziva shook her head. The device only shows that synchronization occurred. Synchronization? Yes. Finn frowned. That word makes it sound like our memories were connected somehow. Ziva remained silent for a moment. That is possible. Finn blinked. Wait. Are you saying someone linked our brains? Temporarily. Finn stared at her. That sounds extremely uncomfortable. Ziva ignored the comment and continued studying the device. Memory synchronization is sometimes used during joint tactical operations. Finn raised an eyebrow. Tactical operations? Yes. For soldiers? Yes. Finn slowly pointed between them again. You are a decorated alien commander. Yes. I fix broken pipes. That appears to be your primary occupation. So why, Finn asked, would someone synchronize our memories for a tactical mission? Ziva looked directly at him. That is the question. Finn sighed and leaned against the wall again. I really hope the answer isn't saving the galaxy. Why? Because that sounds like a lot of responsibility. Ziva slid the transmitter back into the relay panel temporarily and activated the console beside it. The system interface appeared in holographic form. Finn stepped closer. Please tell me that thing records something useful. Ziva scanned the system logs. Possibly. Lines of encrypted data scrolled across the display. Finn watched them for several seconds before squinting. I have no idea what I'm looking at. These are neural pattern references. Still no idea. Ziva paused the feed and highlighted a section. This shows partial memory fragments. Finn leaned closer. Fragments of what? Of synchronized memory. Finn blinked. You can see pieces of the memory that was erased? Not clearly, but there are traces. Finn pointed excitedly. Yes, that. Let's look at the traces. Ziva activated the fragment playback. The holographic display flickered. For a brief moment, distorted images flashed across the screen. A corridor filled with red emergency lights, the sound of alarms, a large chamber filled with experimental machinery, and 2 figures standing side by side. One of them was Ziva. The other... Finn leaned forward. That's me. Ziva nodded slowly. Yes. The image distorted again. The memory fragment replayed a short audio clip. Finn heard his own voice shouting over the alarms. Ziva! If we overload the core, we can shut it down. Ziva listened carefully. That was your voice. Finn rubbed his face. Apparently past me had a lot more confidence. The fragment flickered again. Another voice appeared. Unfamiliar, deeper and colder. You were never meant to remember this. The playback ended abruptly. The room became quiet again. Finn stared at the blank screen. Well, he said slowly, that sounded threatening. Ziva nodded. Yes. Finn crossed his arms. So let me get this straight. He pointed at the display. In some version of events, you and I were standing in a room full of dangerous technology. Yes. And we were apparently stopping something bad from happening. Yes. Finn looked at her. And someone decided that memory needed to be erased. That is the most logical conclusion. Finn exhaled slowly. Which means we knew something important. Ziva closed the relay panel. Yes. Finn looked around the narrow maintenance platform. You know what worries me the most? Ziva waited. Finn shrugged. The person who erased our memories probably assumes we still don't remember anything. Ziva studied him. That assumption may be incorrect. Finn smiled slightly. Exactly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Finn pushed himself off the wall. Well, Commander, he said. Yes? If someone went through the trouble of wiping our memories, Ziva watched him carefully. Well, and then whatever we discovered must have been pretty serious. Ziva nodded once. I agree. Finn glanced toward the ladder leading back down the shaft. Which means we should probably find out what it was. Ziva stepped toward the ladder. Yes. Finn followed behind her. But as they climbed down toward the corridor again, Neither of them noticed the relay system quietly transmitting a small encrypted signal to an unknown receiver somewhere deep within the station. Finn and Ziva climbed down the maintenance shaft slowly, the faint blue lights reflecting off the metal ladder as the steady hum of the station vibrated through the structure. Finn reached the bottom first and stepped back into the corridor, brushing a layer of dust from his sleeves. "Well," he said, looking around the empty hallway, "that was an exciting adventure in the glamorous world of ventilation systems." Ziva descended behind him with far more grace than Finn had managed. When she stepped onto the corridor floor, she immediately glanced both directions, her expression alert. Finn noticed again. "You really think someone's going to jump out from behind a coolant pipe?" Ziva didn't answer right away. "If someone erased our memories," she said calmly, "they may also wish to ensure we do not recover them." Finn nodded slowly. "That is a very fair point." He leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. "So our options are basically two things." Ziva looked at him. "Explain." "Option 1, Finn said, raising a finger. "We ignore everything and pretend none of this happened. And Option 2, we investigate a secret conspiracy involving memory manipulation, experimental technology, and mysterious voices that sound like they belong to villains." Ziva considered the two options. "The second option appears more productive." Finn sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." They began walking down the corridor toward the main station ring. The hallway curved gently along the station's outer structure, with small windows occasionally revealing the deep black of space beyond. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finn eventually broke the silence. "That voice in the memory fragment..." Ziva glanced at him. "Yes. You didn't recognize it?" "No." Finn scratched his chin. "Because whoever it was sounded very confident." Ziva nodded. "They believed the memory erasure would succeed." Finn chuckled slightly. "Well, technically it did succeed." "Yes. Except for the small detail where you walked straight into my room." Ziva slowed slightly. "That detail remains unusual." Finn gestured around them. "Look at this place. This entire station has thousands of rooms." "Yes. And yet your subconscious decided the safest location was next to a maintenance worker who argues with machines." Ziva looked thoughtful. "That implies a previous trust relationship." Finn nodded. "Exactly." They reached a wider junction where several corridors met. Workers and small service drones moved through the area, completely unaware of the strange investigation unfolding nearby. Finn glanced around casually. "You know something else that's interesting?" Ziva waited. "If someone wiped our memories because we discovered something dangerous." He lowered his voice slightly. "Then whatever we found probably still exists." Ziva's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes." Finn pointed toward the central station ring. "And if it still exists, it's probably somewhere important." "The experimental research sectors," Ziva said immediately. Finn blinked. That was fast. "Orpheus Station hosts several classified laboratories." Finn smiled faintly. "Of course it does." Ziva turned slightly toward the central transit corridor. "If our memory fragment showed experimental machinery, it likely originated from one of those labs." Finn followed her gaze. "That sounds logical." Then he frowned. "Wait." Ziva looked at him. "You're a Zenthari commander." "Yes." "Don't you already have access to those labs?" "Only to specific diplomatic facilities." Finn sighed dramatically. "So the dangerous secret lab is probably the one place you can't access." "That is correct." Finn rubbed his temples. "Fantastic." They began walking again toward the central transit lift. After several steps, Finn spoke again. "You know, something else is bothering me." Ziva glanced at him. "What?" Finn shrugged. "If someone erased our memories once, they could try again." Ziva nodded calmly. "Yes." Finn stopped walking. "That possibility should concern you more than it apparently does." Ziva stopped as well. "My training prepares me for such risks." Finn looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled slightly. "Well, in that case, I should probably warn you about something." Ziva waited. "My training prepared me to repair coffee machines." Ziva stared at him for several seconds. Finn continued. "So if we're walking into a secret lab full of dangerous technology..." He shrugged. I may need detailed instructions." Ziva's expression softened very slightly. I will explain the dangerous parts. Good. They reached the transit lift at the center of the junction. The transparent elevator tube extended vertically through several levels of the station. Ziva pressed the control panel. The lift descended toward them silently. Finn watched the glowing numbers on the display. You ever get the feeling we're being watched? Ziva turned her head slightly. Yes. Finn blinked. Wait, you feel that too? Yes. Finn looked around the corridor. Well, that's uncomfortable. The lift doors opened with a soft mechanical hiss. They stepped inside. The transparent walls revealed a wide view of the station's inner structure as the elevator began rising toward the upper decks. Finn folded his arms. All right, Commander. Yes? If someone erased our memories to hide something... Ziva waited. Well, then we're about to walk straight into the reason. Ziva nodded once. That appears likely. Finn exhaled slowly as the lift climbed higher. Great. Above them, the upper research decks of Orpheus Station waited quietly, and somewhere within those labs, the secret they had once uncovered was still there. The lift doors opened quietly onto Research Deck 7. The corridor here looked very different from the maintenance ring. The walls were polished white alloy, glowing softly with embedded light panels. Transparent sections revealed laboratories filled with advanced machinery, holographic displays, and research drones moving in precise patterns. Finn stepped out slowly and glanced around. Well, he muttered, this place already looks like it contains several bad decisions. Ziva walked beside him, her gaze focused on the corridor ahead. The memory fragment showed a large chamber, she said. Finn nodded, with experimental equipment and alarm lights. Yes. Finn scratched his chin. Good news. Ziva looked at him. What news? If the alarms are still on, it'll be easy to find. They began walking down the corridor. Scientists and technicians passed by, most too focused on their work to notice the strange pair moving with quiet determination. Finn leaned slightly closer to Ziva as they walked. You ever notice that the dangerous places always look very clean? Yes. Maintenance corridors look like they're about to explode at any moment, Finn said. But the fancy labs are always shiny. Ziva replied calmly, explosions are easier to clean in controlled environments. Finn stopped walking for a moment. That sentence did not make me feel better. They continued moving until Ziva slowed near a sealed laboratory door. A faint hum vibrated through the wall beside it. She looked at the access panel. This is the chamber. Finn glanced at the label. Experimental Warp Stabilization Core. He leaned closer. That sounds expensive. Ziva touched the control panel. The screen flashed red. Access restricted. Finn nodded. As expected. Ziva studied the panel. The system requires dual authorization. Finn crossed his arms. And we don't have it. Ziva looked at him. Not officially. She placed her hand on the scanner. The panel hesitated. Then the screen flickered. Finn blinked. Did you just override a military security system? I use diplomatic command authority. That still sounds like hacking. The panel flashed again. Second authorization required. Ziva looked at Finn. Place your hand on the scanner. Finn stared at her. Why? The system may recognize your biometric signature. Finn sighed dramatically. If this opens a dangerous laboratory full of unstable warp energy, I want it recorded that this was your idea. He placed his hand on the scanner. The system paused. Then the display turned green. Access granted. Finn blinked slowly. Well, that's suspicious. The door slid open. Inside, the laboratory chamber was enormous. The center of the room contained a towering ring of experimental warp machinery, its metal arcs surrounding a glowing core suspended in midair. Finn stepped inside carefully. Yep, he said quietly. That definitely looks like the thing from the memory fragment. Ziva studied the core. This device manipulates localized space-time. Finn folded his arms, which means if something goes wrong, the station could be destroyed. Finn nodded. Of course. They walked toward the control console near the core. Ziva activated the system. A holographic message appeared instantly. The same cold voice from the memory fragment echoed through the chamber. Commander Ziva, Technician Finn, I wondered how long it would take you to return. Finn looked around. Ah, the mysterious villain voice. The system displayed a recorded transmission. You discovered the truth during the previous timeline, the voice continued. This warp core was designed to create controlled time resets. When you attempted to expose it, I erased your memories and reset the timeline. Finn raised an eyebrow. So we were right. Ziva listened silently. You prevented the experiment once, the voice continued, but you will not do so again. The transmission ended. The core hummed louder. Finn looked at the control panel. Is it activating? Ziva nodded. Yes. Finn sighed. All right, back to the plan from the memory fragment. Ziva looked at him. Overload the core. Exactly. He began pressing controls on the console. Ziva worked beside him, adjusting the energy regulators. The machine vibrated violently as warning alarms began flashing red across the chamber. Finn laughed nervously. You know what's funny? Ziva didn't look up. What? I think we're repeating the exact same plan. Ziva allowed a small smile. Some strategies remain effective. The energy levels climbed rapidly. Finn shouted over the alarms. Ready? Yes. He slammed the final control. The warp core erupted in a brilliant flash of light. Then it collapsed inward, the machinery shutting down with a deep metallic groan. Silence returned to the chamber. Finn leaned against the console, breathing slowly. Well, he said, that was exciting. Ziva studied the inactive core. The experiment has been permanently disabled. Finn nodded. So no more timeline resets. Yes. He looked at her for a moment. Meaning our memories won't be erased again. Ziva turned toward him. That appears unlikely. Finn smiled slightly. You know, a few hours ago I thought my biggest problem today would be a broken docking clamp. Ziva's golden eyes softened slightly. And now? Finn shrugged. Now I help save a space station with a Zenthari commander. Ziva studied him carefully. You handled the situation well. Finn laughed. I complained the entire time. Yes, but you stayed. Finn looked around the quiet laboratory. Someone had to. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Finn gestured toward the door. Well, Commander, I think we've earned some rest. Ziva nodded. Yes. They walked back toward the corridor together. As they stepped into the hallway, the station lights glowed peacefully around them. Finn glanced sideways at her. You know, he said, next time your subconscious decides where to go for safety. Ziva looked at him. Yes. Finn smiled. Maybe try knocking first.